just drinking the Kool-Aid, not really involved in policies or anything like that. Started doing that and realized like how corrupt governments were, like just back to Stalin, Lenin, Mao, and then I was like, well, it couldn't be our government until until I look into our own government, our own policies, and look at false flags, call for Tonka, and you name it. And then I was just like, Jesus. And so that kind of like woke me up to how crazy everything was. And then you kind of, once you're awake, you look around, you realize how dumbed down everybody is. So then I really got extremely kind of politically involved in. So probably like the past year, I started doing like public speaking and doing a bunch of other things. And it's really difficult, as you probably know, like being in California or being in Illinois, where anything that's not Obama, it's like you're racist or you're, especially for me, since I'm black, and it's like, well, hold on a second, don't you know who your president is? And it's like, be easy, it's not my president.
Yeah.
Like, just take it easy. So, so now I'm very outspoken about it, just because there's so many things that are going on. I think everybody can agree that in the past like year, everything's just kind of accelerated to like a new level of craziness. And so now, I'm happy that there's starting to become more and more platforms for people to be able to come together and talk, and just kind of, if anything, it's even a venting way, because when we're in these cities where you can't say anything that's anti-Obama, you just, you know what I mean? So, so now this is kind of where I am. So I just kind of want to spread the message to try to get back to, the Constitution, get back to, private property, and, just the basic fundamental rights of human liberty that are slowly but surely being taken out, from our daily lives.
Okay. So I actually don't think any of us can be considered Obama supporters. Denim, I was like you. I voted for Obama both times, but then the more we learned about what was going on, the reasons I voted for Obama, he's kind of either gotten away from what he said, or done some, like, and Ken, you mentioned the IRS, and the NSA especially is what really scares me, and then foreign policy is really bothering me. So while I'm not necessarily an Obama supporter, for the shutdown specific, like what my position was, I understood where a lot of the conservative arguments. My problem was I didn't like the tactics that were being used, and that was against that. So even though I'm not strictly an Obama supporter, in this specific issue, I was more on his side than congressional Republicans. And again, I just want to make it clear, going forward, whenever I make a criticism, it's directed specifically at congressional Republicans and the tactics that they use, not against all Republicans, not against all libertarians. Because I think one of the problems that we have in this country is, a dialogue is very hard to take, and it's the idea you disagree with somebody, or that person's automatically evil, and I think that's a very toxic attitude to have. Is we can have differing views, on government, and I think just from what you've described, I think we can agree on a lot, but we might have a different view of how maybe government can and should function. Doesn't mean either one of us is right or wrong, or least of all anyone's evil. It's just we have different opinions, and that's okay, I think.
I mean, Ken. Sure.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I kind of shed a lot of light, and of course you weren't there for that, Denham, but earlier. But I do believe that I think it's I don't think Republicans are the only party to blame for this shutdown. I believe that the Democrats are just as much responsible for the shutdown as Republicans are, and I also believe that you talked a little about tactics, Johnny, and we know we talked about that in the last conversation as well. But I'd also like to bring up the fact of the tactics of the Obama administration during the shutdown. He had specific tactics too of making life hard on people, and in fact, it was the one park employee that said we were told to make life as difficult as we can for people. And I actually interviewed a person who was at the 1 Million Vet March, and she's actually going to be coming on my radio show again tomorrow night. But a lot of what she describes and a lot of her frustration with the whole situation was the fact that we had an immigration rally, and it was welcomed. I mean, they were out there, and they had porta potties, and they had everything. This is during shutdown. Everything was all set up. They had a wonderful rally. But then, of course, what do we have for the 1 million, that march? We've got barricades and nothing but mounted horsemen and police in riot gear. Come on. I mean, so, again, we can't just point to, we can't just point to one party and say, oh, well, Ted Cruz, he screwed it up for everybody. Well, no, it's not like that. I mean,
you're right.
This shutdown could have been ended. No, go ahead. No. I'm just, I didn't actually talk about that in the last conversation that we had. And so I wanted to make sure that got out there because, the way the Democrats reacted during the shutdown, to me, might be considered as just as despicable as what, some people have painted the Republicans as terrorists and, people with bombs strapped to their backs and all that great stuff. So, jump in here, Dan. Well, that's the thing. And, and the rhetoric is what drives me crazy. Go ahead, Dan.
Here's my issue is that, I mean, I can agree that to a certain level, this is what, I'm like a political atheist, if you will, so I don't associate myself with Democrats or Republicans. All I want is the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. That's all I want. However, for this particular topic, as far as the Republican position, the reason why I could agree with it was because, I watch C-SPAN like it's the soap opera. Like I watch it like everybody else watches Scandal. And that's just, and I watch 16 hours of the 20, of the 20-plus hour filibuster that Ted Cruz has, like just a nerd for it. And the reason why I understood the shutdown, that wasn't really a shutdown. It was 83% of the government was still running, IRS and NSA and everybody else. Everything was still running. People were still getting paid. The only people that weren't getting paid were the people that the American people could really see. And so when they got up, on CNN or MSNBC or even Fox and complained about how hard everything was, then they could say, well, oh, look, this is because of the shutdown. Meanwhile, everybody else was still getting paid. A military was still getting paid. And, in the beginning, the Democrats, Harry Reid and Barbara Boxer especially, came out day after day saying, how dare they not fund our military and how dare they do this? Even when Obama already has the authority to do that without having to get any kind of congressional authority or approval, you can just sign a paper that says that that's allowed.
That's
true.
And
so the issue that I have is, we can talk about tactics with the Republican side of it. The reason why it was shut down is because of all the goodies that the Democrats want to keep throwing into everything, and so it was never just okay, we'll fund the government. It's we have basic economics in this country, and right now we have $17 trillion in debt. That's just Treasury debt. Okay, we have over $600 trillion in derivative markets. So what we're getting to is, like Obama said 2 months ago, raising the debt ceiling doesn't raise the debt. It's like putting a gun in your mouth and pulling the trigger doesn't actually kill you if there's a bullet in the chamber. It's like, but you have to. But then you look at his constituents. And you go, and they all sit there and go, yeah, raising the debt ceiling doesn't raise the debt. And so then the Republicans are like, well, no, it does. And so we're at this point now to whereas we have like this humongous tumor that's growing on the side of everybody's body that's called the United States debt, and that's going to pop, and eventually we either have to take it off or we're going to continue to allow it to continuously metastasize. And so the Republicans are like, look, we need to figure out a way to, bring this debt down, or at least get it to a place to where we're not overspending, right? And you don't want to do that. But then in that, you also want to throw in Obamacare, which is meant to wreck everything. But that's what it's meant for. It's meant just to wreck the whole country. And it has death panels in there, which they finally come out and they've talked about. Premiums have exploded. I have 4 friends out here in California who are 26 and 27 years old, whose premiums were $75 a month. They went and were attempted, and I say an attempt because you don't ever actually get to sign up for Obamacare, you just attempt to, okay? So they attempted to sign up for it, and now their premiums are over $200 a month. These are 26 and 27-year-old males who have not been in the hospital since they were conceived, okay? And so everybody on average, their premiums are doubling and tripling. Like, they're just facts. And just like Barbara Boxer would come out, and especially in California, and be like, oh, we have 700,000 new visitors to the website. And the constituents, look at that and go, oh, look, we have 700,000 new people that have signed up for Obamacare. No, those are just people that tried to visit a website to look at it once they realize that they have to waive their Fifth Amendment rights, once they realize that, okay, we're giving a third party our Social Security, all of our information, and then our premiums are going to double. We don't want any part of that. Now, granted, if you're an illegal immigrant, if you're on food stamps, you're going to get all those things for free. But people don't understand that you already had free health care before. It's called charity care. And you could go into the hospital, and you could sit there and go, I don't have any insurance. And they would sit there and you sign some papers, and then that's it. I know for a fact, when I went in 4 years ago, because I broke my ribs, my bill was $10,000. I was like, I don't have $10,000 to pay. And they said specifically, well, you can just sign up on this thing. It is charity care. They don't want you to do that. They want the insurance companies to take care of that. So your insurance companies can charge, crazy. But $10,000 was like $10,800. All that was gone. I didn't pay a dime. Okay. So what the issue is with the Republican side, especially with Ted Cruz, is that he was like, look, we've read the documents. We haven't read all, 11 million, words of the regulations that's in it, but we've read the most parts of it, and it says, look, your premiums are going to double. You may be able to keep your healthcare provider, which we've now found out 2 weeks in that that's not the case. Doctors are getting fired. Premiums are exploding. The only thing you're getting for free is that if your grandma wants a hip replacement, she's going to get a free cane. She's not going to get a free hip. She'll get a free cane, and then she'll be told to be sent on her way. And so what we're really dealing with the shutdown was the Republicans kind of banding together and saying, look, this might be our last chance to try to really take Obamacare out. And then Obama is like, look, I don't want that. And if you guys keep doing that, my constituents love me. They don't love Republicans because they've known Republicans as, right-wing extremists, terrorists, people that are almost as bad as Al-Qaeda, anti-black, you name it. And that's the worst thing. And so for me, where I look at the shutdown and I'm like, look, this was Republicans' last chance to try to get their appeal of Obamacare. And you had Ron Paul, along with Mitch McConnell, who finally came out and said, look, we're not going to win this fight. We're not going to win Obamacare, so let's just let it get implemented. It's not going to work anyways, and let's let the Democrats take the fall in 2014. But see, the issue is that it's not going to work. It's just not going to. But in 2014, when they finally come out with the new elections and all that, they're going to use the shutdown as the reason why Obamacare didn't work. And so the Republicans are going to be damned if you do and damned if you don't. So I just kind of feel like with this, I feel like the government shutdown was just another kind of theatrical thing. They pulled the day of default out of nowhere. We have a continuously debt. I think yesterday they spent $328 billion in one day. So, I mean, it's nothing but a soap opera, and it's just another way to kind of distract from the NSA and the IRS and Benghazi, and all of the real issues that we should be talking about, but it's just, they need political theater. And so this is what we're dealing with, and we have, China telling us what, how we should be spending our money, and our AAA ratings are going down because, China owns $1.7 trillion of our debt. So there's so many issues that we should really be talking about, where the government shutdown is just used as a little, like a little thing for kids to look at. Meanwhile, behind the room, they're talking about ways to get out of Benghazi. They're talking about ways to do it because people are really starting to wake up. Once the NSA came out, people were like, hold on a second. Well, what else are you guys lying about? And they can't have that. So it's just, to me, it's something that's important. However, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in all these other, countries, with Al Qaeda, with the funding of Al Qaeda, and this, I feel like those are the real issues.
Okay. Ken, do you want to respond, or can I go ahead?
Well, actually, so you're going to give me the chance. That was great, Denham. I mean, what you said was very well spoken, and I just wanted to point out, because you are a C-SPAN viewer like myself, wasn't it? Am I incorrect in saying that the last bill that the House passed to send over to the Senate on the night of the shutdown, did that bill not fully fund the government, and it just asked for a 1-year delay on the individual mandate, and it asked for the subsidies to be taken out of Obamacare? Is that not correct?
No, it's 100% correct. They said
Okay.
we'll give you everything you want.
No, are we back on delay again?
Slightly.
They said we'll give you everything you want. All we want you to do is do what you've done for big business, which is give them a 1-year delay and allow people, because it's so great. Obamacare is so great. Just give people a year to figure it out. And again, you can just see in that. But again, CNN, MSNBC, all these other ones will just sit there and talk about how, Obama can't get anything through. When it was indeed Obama who said, I'm not going to negotiate. He just flew away. He was just like, I'm leaving. You guys take care of it. And so, yes, in fact, they said, we'll fund everything. Give us a year mandate like you've done for all the big businesses that have lobbied for millions and billions of dollars of regulations on the American people, but they didn't want that. And so finally, because you have one of the weakest people you could have in Congress, or in the Senate, in Bonner or whatever, he'll fall over at anything Obama says, and finally just gave him all the goodies and gave him everything he wanted. But that was the whole point. Just give us a 1-year delay.
Okay. So, all right. So, Ken, you said that earlier, and Dev confirmed that. So that does change my my opinion slightly. I'll do a little independent search of that myself, and if that's the case, then I don't think my overall position changes, but slightly. So then you said that that you had anecdotal evidence that premiums were going up, and I've heard that as well. I've also heard anecdotal evidence that for some people premiums are going down. So I think it's still a little. My opinion, I think it's still a little too early to confirm one way or the other if all premiums are going up or all premiums are going down, or whatever the case may be. It is disturbing to me that premiums are going up for anybody. I think that's very problematic, and I have a lot of and I'm in a very similar situation. I'm 26, had to go off my parents' insurance. I signed up for it, and it was $400 a month. And granted, the sickest that I've ever been was because of an infection that I got at a hospital. So it was the hospital's fault that I was the sickest I've ever been. So that's a problem, and we need to address that. But then another thing you said was that it's like if you don't have the money, you can sign up for this charity thing. And to me, that's almost an argument for the individual mandate, or having people buy health insurance too. So if everyone's and more people are paying into it, then overall it's less for everybody. I'd rather pay $100, $200 a month to have that little extra insurance than saying, holy shit, $10,000 right away. So we have some serious problems with the entire healthcare system, and I definitely don't think Obamacare is fixing it. In general, I don't even like the bill overall. There are lots of things that I don't like about the bill. My personal opinion is I think we should have universal health care. That's another topic, another discussion for another day. and Kim, what I'll say just slightly is I've experienced the universal health care in France. I lived for a year in France, and it was fantastic. It was great. So, another topic for another day. And then what was you said a lot. What was some of the things you said after the after you said you had been in the hospital that you signed up for that charity thing? What did you say after that?
It's called charity care. And
yeah. What was? But what did you? I mean, but what? Well, let me ask you a question though.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are we back to a delay now?
Oh, he's talking, but I can't hear him.
Okay. I posted the link actually in the room for the Heritage Foundation with showing the premium numbers. So if you want to pull that up, Johnny, you can take a look at it. But that gives you the rates for. Oh man, this is happening again. I hate this delay. But that article will show you the average cost per state for a 27-year-old and a 50-year-old.
Okay.
And then it shows a family of 4. So if you review that link in there, that'll give you an idea of what the Obamacare rates are going for right now.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is that, I mean, I have family that lives in Europe, in London, just right outside of London. And here's the thing, and this is why it's so brilliant, is politics it's supposed to be a lukewarm, or it's supposed to be a hot or a cold issue. And in any policy, in any mandate, you could find something of why it should be good. However, and I'm not going to get off into it, Jack, because it's a really deep conversation for another time. However, there are people that there's big interests that have things that they want to do. And universal health care, hold on. Yeah. The issue is that with Obamacare, and even for universal health care, I know people that were in Europe that they would be, that they would have a cold and they would go to the doctor, and they wouldn't even see a doctor. They would see a nurse, and the nurse would say, well, you're just gonna, here, take this little bag, and in the bag it had like some antibiotics, and it had this and it had that. You weren't even allowed to see the doctor. You would go in, they would give you your little goodie bag, you would take it home, with your little, tea bag and you name it. And then if that didn't work, you'd have to go back to the doctor, and then you'd have to get in line to go ahead and see that doctor. Now, you can look at reports. You can just type it in for London Guardian, the Guardian, the Independent, where people die. People will go in and they'll have a headache, won't be able to see a doctor, and then a couple months later, it'll take months for them to see an actual doctor and die because of a brain tumor, right? And these are things you just type it in, just mainstream news, where nobody looks at, European news over here. But you can look at it, it's always in the newspaper. And the fact of the matter is, it's always back page of the newspaper. Just like how back page of the newspaper a couple months ago is how Anwar al-Awlaki was killed by a United States drone. It was back in the newspaper like it didn't even matter. And so, universal healthcare in national healthcare, it can work in a certain level. However, big interest groups always seem to get a hold of that and find a way to wreck it. And this is just the way that it's always gone. And so,
well, can't you argue the same thing about insurance companies running healthcare?
Well, but the insurance companies wrote Obamacare, so it's like so it's like when you have big interests and big insurance companies that write Obamacare, and then they give Congress, it's 3,000 pages. They say, Congress, you have a day to read it, and then they jam it through. And then this is the thing. This is the number one issue that I have with all the constituents, that their most intellectual argument that they can say is the Supreme Court ruled it constitutional. No, the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. But what the Supreme Court decided to do was something unconstitutional, which is take Obamacare, write their own legislation for Obamacare in the back, okay? And then after they got done doing something that was unconstitutional, then they said, okay, look, we went and wrote our own legislation to Obamacare, and now we're going to say that it's constitutional. So when Obamacare originally was sent, they were like, no, this is a tax. Like, this is a tax for healthcare. This is unconstitutional. But don't worry, Obama. Don't worry, everybody. We got your back, insurance company. So then they went and wrote legislation to make it constitutional, then to pass. But they don't tell you that in mainstream news. And that's what gets so frustrating, because then when you actually try to explain it, people are like, oh, no, that didn't happen. Because if CNN's not telling you, or MSNBC's not telling you, then obviously it's not right. And so when we kind of get into these kind of topics, unless you are extremely informed, we can only have a halfway conversation, because then we have to spend time to like go back and look for it again, and then, to bring it up and to kind of go back and forth, when really at the end of the day, it's going to wreck everything. You can look at any big doctor that knows how to tie his shoelaces, that's not a part of the system. They will all sit there and say, I'm quitting my job next week, or I'm quitting in a month. It's meant to wreck the country. It's not going to work. It has death panels on it, and it's all in there. And so when you're in the government shutdown, which is not a government shutdown, it's a hostage situation, which is what Obama said. But then, and Jay Carney says it as well, that the Republicans are holding us hostage. Well, I guess the Republicans are evil because they actually realize, we may have a dog in this race as far as getting money, but oh my God, this is going to wreck everything. So we're not even going to have any money to take from people. So even for them, they had to sit there and go, this is gonna destroy everything. And on top of that, you want to just keep raising the debt ceiling. So then when you guys have kids, when I have kids, they're gonna have to be paying this debt. They're gonna be having to pay all this. And so what is that gonna mean? That's gonna be higher premiums. That's gonna be, inflation is gonna go up. That means gas is gonna go from $3.45 to $7 to $8. And it sounds extreme, but it's not, because it's the only thing that can happen. And so that's why you have all of these other things that are going on, because taxes have to go up. Like, one of the biggest things that Obama was like, we need to make sure that the middle class isn't paying more. My mom works in Sacramento, in and around the political, arena. And she even told me in November when I was talking to her about it, and she was like, oh, honey, that's not going to happen. No, in February when I was up there, she was like, oh, my God, they took out even more out of my paycheck this time than they've ever done. And it's like, and this is just what happened. Mom doesn't make millions of dollars. She's in, maybe upper middle class, I guess, if you will. But it's just even for them. And so what it is you get Warren Buffett along with Bill Gates and, Google and Facebook and all these other big corporations who are tax exempt, right? And all these people that are making $250 even less are having to pay more. And so it's this nonsense that is constantly like, oh, he's trying to help us, he's trying to do that. It's going to wreck everything. And so, like, you look at the Heritage Foundation, you realize the 26-year-old male, you're going to pay $225 a month. How are you going to do that? You're not going to do that. And if you don't do it, you're going to get taxed and penalized for not doing it. So if it's so great, why are you going to get penalized for not having it? It's simple. If it's free, which is what it's saying, why do we have 11 million words in the legislation? Like, if it's free. So these are just like basic common sense things. You're just like, obviously it's not what they're telling you it's going to be.
Okay. So, a lot of good points, and I think a lot of what you said about the bill, I agree with, and we've got to make, and as you said, it's more than just the government shutdown. We've got some serious problems that we need to address, and the shutdown is just part of it. One thing I'm just curious about is, and I've heard this a lot, not just from you, Denham, is that they say Obamacare is going to quote your words, wreck everything, and it certainly has problems. But I'm still haven't seen exactly how we are getting from point A to point B. Obamacare being instituted, and then wrecking everything. It seems to me that that people haven't been able to give specific examples of Obamacare causing a specific problem.
Okay, well, what about the 10,000 doctors that were just let go from one corporation? Just
so do you have a link to that? Because my mom works at a hospital, and she said because of Obamacare, they were actually hiring more doctors, and that more doctors were being hired on at this hospital because they were expecting more patients.
All right, let me. Ken can speak to that. And you're just like.
I'll actually.
Oh, okay, there you go. Keep going.
Well, let me just say, I'm going to look for it right now. I do. There's a independent survey group, and I will find you the link here. I tweeted out a while ago, but it's an independent survey group, actually out of California, and they interviewed. You'll hear me eventually. The interviewed doctors, and actually, with 60% of doctors had said that they plan on retiring in the next 3 years because of Obamacare. So I'm going to find that link, and I'll put it in the chat room as soon as I get it. But I'll let you guys catch up to my lag, and then we'll go from there.
Then once again, if that's the case, then and if that's confirmed by other studies, as we all know, we can't just trust
lag catches up.
One study. Then my opinions are going to change. I don't think my opinion on Obamacare in general has changed. I stated from the beginning. I think it's flawed. It has a lot of problems. It was just I think, and then you're all about rightly following the Constitution. My issue was, in this current situation, I didn't think that congressional Republicans were following the Constitution. Is that if they had control of the House, but they didn't have control of the Senate, and they don't have the White House. So, to a certain extent, they have to accept the reality of the situation. And if Obamacare is every bit as bad as as you say it is, I think we'll see it. And
you're right. But here's the biggest issue is that you can't. If I see Godzilla, okay, in the Asian Pacific, and we're looking on a telescope and we're saying Chicago, California, Godzilla's coming. We don't have time for people to sit there and go, well, let's just wait until it hits the mainland and then we'll start freaking out about it. And so when you have doctors that are quitting, when you have other people that are saying that this is making their premiums go up, it's a problem. So here's just one small thing. Like you said, well, they didn't have control of the Senate, but they have control of the House. Well, here's one thing. What's the most unconstitutional thing is the First Amendment, which is the separation between church and state. When you have churches that are now supposed to be paying for abortions because of Obamacare, that is the number one thing. The churches no longer have the right to sit there and say, we don't want to pay for that. They're like, no, it's in Obamacare, we passed it, it's the law. So you already, just in that one little thing, have already violated the Constitution. So it's not like, oh, well, look, just because everybody else in the Senate is on board with it, then now you guys just have to go along with it. Yeah, majority of people in the Senate right now, like, you have a whole bunch of Dick Durbins and Barbara Boxers and Dianne Feinsteins who openly come out and say they want to take everybody's guns away and, you know, that they don't believe that anybody's good except for Obama, and that this is just what they are. And I don't romanticize Republicans by any stretch of the imagination. But when you have clear things such as making churches pay for abortion and, you know, churches being told what they're allowed to say, and like with the NSA and the IRS, what they're allowed to talk about, what they're allowed to preach, these are things that clearly violate the Constitution. And so you kind of just...
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Where we kind of get to the point to where it's like we have to take a line in the sand somewhere. And Obamacare doesn't officially get introduced until January 1st. So, but the issue is that once you finally sign up in January, you're not going to see it right now. Right now, it's the slow and steady, decline. People are trying to figure it out. The bugs. You even had Kathleen Sebelius, who was the head of the HHS, that came out and was like, no, yeah, it's kind of bad, and yeah, we lied, and maybe it's not what we said it was going to be, but oh well, it's the law. Because you have to understand, in 2010, when they made it quote-unquote law, they lied about all the things that it was going to be. They said you're going to be able to keep your doctor. They said you're not going to, your premiums aren't going to be going up. No, it's going to be free. Just getting everybody on board with the fact of don't bother us on this issue. Allow it to pass, and then we'll talk. And what did the Democrats do this time before? Just, you know what? Just pass what we want, and then we'll be more than happy to sit down at the table with you. And this is the common thing. This is what they do. They say just allow this to get implemented, and then we'll be more than happy. But what happened in the last 3 years of why people could not fight for Obamacare? Benghazi happened, which nobody went. Like everybody, it just came and went. You had Fast and Furious happen. You had the NSA. You had the IRS. So all of these things. You had Syria, which was literally on the verge of World War III. If it wasn't for a midnight meeting at the White House, that was like, don't do this. You're gonna kill us all. Like, so you had all of these issues that were happening. So you can never talk about healthcare. And so then when Ted Cruz finally was like, we got to get back to this. This is going to wreck everything. Then they did that. So for 3 years, the Obama administration lied about what Obamacare was going to be. And then when it was finally introduced, it was too late because they're like, well, it's the law now. And that's why Obamacare went from you can keep your healthcare professional to, well, we're not going to talk about that. And if you notice, the first time that Obama talked 2 weeks ago, not one person in the lapdog media asked him about Obamacare not working. Because this is what happens. They get pulled into the White House and said, look, if you want to have a meeting with me, you're not going to ask me this question and that question. And that's why they are. They're just a bunch of lapdogs that get in there and they pretty much worship him and talk about how great and romanticize him all day long. And this is what we're dealing with now. And, if you study history, which I study it ad nauseum, they've done this all the time. Ceausescu did this, Mao did it, Stalin did it, Lenin did it, where they were never reporting on real issues because they were told, you're not going to get this story unless you get in line. And this is what it's become.
Yeah. Again, very, very good points. And broadly, I agree with you. I'm basically I'm my own party. I don't follow either Republicans or Democrats, and on virtually everything the president has done, I disagree with them for all the reasons you said. And I actually wrote a blog post about Syria being possibly the start of World War III. So I get it. I really respect your opinions. You're very, very well spoken. I did want to bring up a couple points. Is that you said it was a violation of separation in church and state, First Amendment rights for having some insurance companies pay for abortion.
Churches.
And so Christian organizations saying we don't want to pay for X, Y, and Z because it goes against our beliefs. But couldn't you also argue that a business doesn't have the right to tell their employees what to do with their health?
A church isn't a business, though. Like, you can't tell a church you're going to now pay for abortion. Like,
are any churches actually having to pay for those?
Huh?
That's
what the biggest issue is that Catholic churches all over the country, that was their biggest thing. We don't want to do it. But see, here's the trick, and this is why it's so multifaceted. If you have a small church, and let's just say Jackson, Mississippi, right? You're a small church, maybe in the middle of Jackson, Mississippi. The government will come to you and say, look, because the majority of the people are not as, and this is all over the country. I'm just using Jackson, Mississippi just because. And so the government will come to them and say, look, why don't you sign up? We can give you money. We'll give you $15,000 to go ahead and rebuild the inside of this church. And so they sign up as a 501c3. Okay, which now means that they're a part of a government organization, which now means that the government can now come in and dictate and tell them what they're allowed to talk about, what they're not allowed to talk about. Okay, but the churches, on average, don't understand that they can get that whenever they want without having to sign up for a 501c3, which automatically makes them a part of a government organization. And so independent churches, I guess, if you don't take any money from government, you don't get any money from them, they're fine. But a lot of churches have been sucked into wanting money, to get the crosses redone or the podiums redone. So they go ahead and take the money from the government, right? And so because of that, that's the trap. And so now that they've taken the money from the government, now they're a part of it, and now they have to do whatever the government says. And this is what they do. So it's a multi-layered thing. But I mean, on average, when you sit there and you talk about just churches having to pay for abortion, you're just sitting there going, "This is ridiculous." You know, you can go to Planned Parenthood. The Planned Parenthood will pay for your abortion. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have to make a church pay for it. You just walk down to Planned Parenthood, and they'll do it for you.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that churches themselves shouldn't have to pay for abortions. It was never my understanding, and my understanding that was in the bill. It was my understanding that businesses with religious affiliations were having to pay for insurance that included the right to get an abortion. That was my understanding.
Yep.
And so my argument is I can kind of understand, but it's also just because I work for you doesn't mean you get to tell me what I get to do. You know, for example, I'm a competitive cyclist. Let's say, for example, my employer was against me doing that, and if I had a crash, they said, "No, we're not going to pay for that." You know, do they have the right to do that? You know,
but that's not the same thing as that. But that's not the same thing as having
forms of oppression, other forms that don't just come from government. So,
but you're comparing breaking your leg to killing a child in many people's eyes. So I'm not arguing, you know, should companies be able to afford it. But here, since you brought up that topic, and I think Ken can speak to this too, because I've seen a lot of stuff that he's talked about as well, that you have to look at the small businesses. Small businesses are shutting down all over the country because they cannot afford to pay what they're having to pay because of Obamacare. Now, you can flip that, and I'll show you what the quote-unquote liberal, which is not liberal, Thomas Jefferson was liberal. These are just authoritarians that want to take over everything. This is what their side of it is, the fact of, oh, well, if now you know that your boss doesn't really like you or care about you because they don't want to pay for your insurance. No. If you have the amount of premiums that you have to pay as a small business owner, there is no way that you can pay them because it's like you have to have maximum coverage. You're paying thousands of dollars a month. On average, you're paying almost more than you'd be taking in a month just to pay for people's health care. And so under 50 people, that's why you even had UPS workers, UPS sending out a letter saying, look, everybody that works for us, I think it was like 15,000 letters went out. Huh? Yeah,
go ahead and make your point. I'll just in a second.
I think it was like 15,000 workers that said, look, your spouse no longer has insurance. But you have all these other small businesses, you know, little mom and pop shops that are having to close down because they cannot afford to pay for the ridiculous rates that it is. And I'm sorry, at the end of the day, you can't sit up there and argue all day that America runs off of small businesses and it starts from the inside and it goes out. And then small businesses all across the country, you cannot find me one small business that's going to sit there and tell you, oh no, Obamacare is great and it's going to make my business thrive. There's not been one small business that said that, not one. And so if it's so great, then why don't you have all these small businesses that are coming out and saying how great it is? You only have Fortune 500 companies that are coming out and talking about how amazing it is. And this is the nature of what it is. And so we can talk about the little things all day, but at the end of the day, I have a small business. I've looked into what it would be like to actually have to hire people. How are you going to do that? There's no way. You have to shut down. And just like Obama said when he was in the Senate in 2006, and he was on a panel, he would talk about the coal power plants, and he was like, well, if you want to have a coal power plant, you can have that, but we're going to regulate you, and then we're going to tax you. So where the taxes are so high, you're going to have to shut down. And so now all over the country, coal power plants are shutting down. So people's prices are doubling. And so now General Electric, who's lobbied for him and gave him millions and billions of dollars, are now taking over those contracts. And so where are all those coal power plants going? They're all going to China. So, I mean, it's just kind of like at every single layer you have craziness. And this is just like one more facet of it.
Yeah. So about the UPS employers, I read the other day, yeah, you're right, 15,000 employees are losing spousal coverage, but the only ones that are losing spousal coverage have spouses that get insurance through their employees. So that specifically isn't as bad as it sounds. And so we've talked about, and this I think we've turned this into.
Yeah, and let me
Ken?
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Well, let me say, as you wait for my through my delay, you know, look at Walgreens, for example. You know, Walgreens has pushed the majority of their employees to the exchanges. Now, what does somebody like Obama say to those employees when he said, if you like your coverage, you can keep your coverage? That's obviously not true. I hear you, Raphael. But there's a delay, so there's an issue. You know, again, you know, it's one of those situations where, and it's not just Walgreens. Here in Illinois, a franchise owner, he owns 3 Subways, is having to let go of employees because he needs to get under the 50 because he can't afford to pay his employees. And like Denham said, for big businesses, it's probably going to be something where they can just say, look, all right, I'm just going to push all my employees to the exchanges. And for small businesses, like Denham said, you know, they're out of options. They're kind of screwed because they got to either, you know, deal with paying the extra money or, they go out of business, a lot of them. So this Subway owner, he's actually selling off 2 of his stores because he can't afford it. And the corporation's not helping him at all. So I'll let you guys catch up with
that. Rafael, do you want to chime in?
I just think that the whole fiasco with the fiscal crisis is corporate control. It's very hard. I think as a forum like this brings people able to talk, and the social media, I think that will help. But there is a definite crisis in that both houses of Congress cannot agree on a budget. If they are being heard by the public, that's an issue that also has to be addressed. People have to be the voice of the people have to be used in how they direct their spending or their policy, and that's basically what I have to say right now.
Well, I definitely agree. I think, here's this, and maybe you guys, and we're all in different places, so maybe you guys can speak to this as well. From the people that I have spoken to, Sacramento all the way down to Hollywood, where I live, on average, people don't want to be in any more wars. Okay, they're tired of the wars. I have about 4 friends. One of my cousins used to be a ranger in the K-9 unit. I have another friend that's just coming back from Afghanistan. And they're over there for no reason. I've talked to them off record and on record, and there's nothing going on. Okay, they're running around doing nothing, like literally. Okay, they don't want to be any more wars. You know, people are noticing that they're having to work more and make less. Okay, they're realizing that it's harder to get gas. They can't even get to a job interview because they don't have enough money to put in their gas tank. You know, there's the everyday things that they can no longer afford to do. You know, I looked at the poll, and I might butcher the numbers, but I'll get around it. I think they said like there was 35 to 40% of people from the age of 18 to 25 or 27 had to move back home with their parents in the past 2 or 3 years. This isn't because all of a sudden everybody doesn't want to, be out by themselves. People can't afford rent anymore. And this doesn't just happen just because all of a sudden, we're in 2013 and it's supposed to get more expensive. No, things are happening. And so when we talk about really trying to get the budget down, we have more people that are sucking on the government dole. There's 50 million people that are on the SNAP program, on the food assistance, and 101 people altogether. Okay, so 101 people in one way or another are on some kind of government assistance just for food. Okay, so when you have more people that are getting free money, I guess, if you will, than you have that America is making, you're going to have an explosion. So all these people that are making, from the wars and you name it, they don't want the wars to end because they're making money from those government no bid contracts like Halliburton, you name it. So their money's making. So right here in California, Dianne Feinstein, when she first entered into the Senate, 36 years ago, she was worth like $500,000. Now she's worth over $150 million. That didn't just happen because she's in the Senate. Okay, so there's a lot of the no bid contracts. There's a lot of the insider trading. This is how all of them are able to make their money. The voice of the people for them doesn't really matter. But now you see people like Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and how they demonized Ron Paul before, where they were really about, look, we want to lower the government. Same thing in John F. Kennedy before he died. He talked about, look, we need to take away the CIA. We need to make that more open. There's no reason to have the IRS. These are all the things that make government irrelevant. And so they pick and choose parts of the Constitution and little things of what the founding fathers said to try to make their point. But what you have is like Thomas Jefferson said, is that, when the people fear the government, you have tyranny. When the government fears the people, you have liberty. This is just what it is. And so if we're really speaking for the people, it doesn't interest what the government officials are going to have. And so I think that's what the biggest issue is. And that's why platforms like this, we have to do more than just have this conversation. We have to continuously go out, whether it's going into our city councils or into our school board meeting. Because the Agenda 21, that kind of thing is happening everywhere. And we have to go out and start becoming more of a voice. Because if we can force this into the mainstream conversation, that's why you always have Obama saying, don't listen to bloggers and don't listen to independent journalists. You have Dianne Feinstein saying, we're going to decide who is going to be the real media now. Because they understand that these kind of platforms are what's going to take down that. But we have to just do more than it. But we have to understand that, look, there's a big elephant in the room, and we're going to have to blow the roof off of this thing and pull it out with a crane. Otherwise, it's going to destroy everyone.
Do you see any solutions? May I ask? Not solutions, but do you see any policy changes that can be made? A limit based up to, but not including a constitutional amendment to get corporations either out of the lobbying or get some reform within Congress. I mean, it is ridiculous for a lot of government officials to have been paid during this crisis. It's even more important when you hear that state officials have been paid unemployment and are going to back pay their pay that they did not get and still won't have to pay back their unemployment. So, I mean, there is corruption or there is misreading of the law, but I'm trying to get an idea from you guys as to what kind of I hear the troubles. I want what kind of changes should happen. Is Obama the prince that he was when he was elected? In your eyes, has he changed? I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the way he handled the government shutdown, the way he handled the government. Is he part of the establishment? When he was elected, I thought he was not part of the establishment, other than being a two-year senator. But so anyway, those are my time.
Johnny, yeah, I think you listed like a couple of ideas that you have, so you maybe can.
Yeah. So this is we've got a huge problem. My biggest, I think the two biggest things we can do to actually reduce the influence of the government and especially the corruption is, number one, get corporate money out of elections, out of political parties. Just get rid of it. Reduce the amount that they can spend in elections. And then number two is we've got to get rid of gerrymandering. I know both parties do it. It's wrong on both sides. So the fact that people can decide how their district is going to be drawn. I mean, it's such a huge conflict of interest, and it leaves such room for abuse that I can't even believe that we've accepted this for so long. I think if we get those two things, if we do those two things, I think we can actually then have a representative government of the people. Because as you said, there's a lot of corporate and big business interests where people are beholden to their sponsors and trying to make money, and so the policies that they're pursuing aren't for the good of the people; they're for the good of the people that are backing them. And I also think, when we talk about like big government, small government, I think that's oversimplifying the issue. I think the question that we need to ask is, in what situations can government be a positive influence, and in what situations is it a negative influence? And in the situations where government can be a good thing, government is a service. It should be whatever we want it to be. But the problem is government isn't in the hands of the people, and what we've got to do is try to get it back in the hands of the people. Actually have a government that serves the people, and getting rid of corporate money and getting rid of gerrymandering are just two things that we could do that would kind of start to getting on the right direction.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I mean, first off, I mean, to have a government for the people, I mean, and that's what, I heard a lot of that in Ted Cruz's filibuster the other night, government for the people. And, I brought this up in our last conversation that, Ted Cruz, was speaking on behalf of the American people. And, I believe that we need to position ourselves to say, look, if we want to, be a party of the people, then I think both Democrats and Republicans have to be able to listen to each other. Because if they refuse to listen to each other and they refuse to work together, which is what they're doing now, this is never going to get resolved. And like I mentioned in the last conversation, we have an $80 billion difference in opinion on the budget. $80 billion. That's not something that you can just, throw in pocket change. That's a lot of money. And so, I think a lot of this environment was, I do believe that this environment was set up by Barack Obama. I think that he has divided this country more than any other president that I've ever seen. And, I just feel that, as it was said in the last conversation, if, as Obama has said, if you guys want to change government, we'll win elections. Well, we won the House, like I said, and now I think conservatives or the Republican Party are poised to take over the Senate in 2014, and I think that is a very good likelihood, considering the red state Democrats in the Senate that are up for re-election. And unfortunately for the conservatives, I have to wait until 2014 for that to happen. But it's going to happen. And I've been working with. That's part of my show that I do on Sunday nights, Conservative Revolution, is to start promoting these conservative candidates that are going to help us, or at least help the conservative movement, return us back to the ideals that we all believe in. And so that's my goal. And I've already been working with the Me Treadwell campaign up in Alaska. I've been working with Tom Cotton in Arkansas, and a couple others that are out there. So, again, I think the likely scenario in 2014 is that Republicans take back the Senate and the House, and I think you will see. Some change.
Well, yeah.
And I'll wait for everything to catch up.
I think. I agree. I think. I don't romanticize, a perfect government. I think a way that. I think.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think a way that can be in the immediate would be term limits. So that you're not. So we're not getting. Because at the end of the day, you get in there and you wine and dine, and that's all you want.
I think so. I haven't.
That's all you do. So I think that if you offer term limits, and so that they weren't able to just be a part of the system, like the Harry Reids and Dianne Feinsteins and Barbara Boxer and all of them, then you don't have to. You're not going to be getting all of this corruption. And even George Washington, he just stepped down. He didn't want to be president anymore. It was just like, I want to go and be on my farm. And it's just like, this is just what it was. But see, now they've realized that they can make so much money being on the inside, more so than it is running a small business or, working, being a partner in a corporation, whatever. And so I feel like that would be something in the immediate that we could start implementing, because that would immediately start to cut corruption up there. Because it's like, look, you're only in there for, for 2 years or for 3 years. That's it. So, do something right, and then you're out. So, and Raphael, I was offering
I heard you.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I think that would be something in the immediate that we could do. And then, so the second thing that Raphael said was about Obama's the prince that he was in 2008. Well, I think that he was, look, he was going against John McCain, who all he wants to do is go to war all day long. That's all John McCain does. He doesn't care about anybody. He just wants to be in war. So I think, people, they use the, getting out of the war in Afghanistan and in the war in Iraq. I think that they really used that in 2008. And that's something that universally everybody could agree upon, And so I think that when we found out that, we're still in Afghanistan, we're still in Iraq, we're still in all those places, we're still going to have troops there, but people were under the assumption that everyone was coming home, that there weren't just going to be 14,000 people left overseas, So I think that Obama, I think he was always an insider. I think he's always had that. He has a lot of connections to a lot of people. He got a lot of money, billions of dollars from J.P. Morgan and other corporations, and just like a lot of the politicians get. My issue is that, like Ken said, was that he's done it better than all the other presidents have been able to do it. He's deceived better. He's a better speaker than all the other presidents that we've ever had. He's entrancing with Obama. When he speaks, you become entranced by him because he's brilliant. He's not dumb. He's extremely brilliant, and he knows what he's doing, and he's getting a lot of money because of it. And again, at the end of the day, by being able to lobby, right, for all of these different things, if a corporation throws my family $1 billion, I'll get up and tell you whatever you want to hear. If I'm getting $1 billion for it, knock yourself out. And so I think that the biggest issue is that he knows how to speak. He was trained brilliantly, but and he understood. Look, and you have people all over the country, especially Travis Smiley, who's been extremely outspoken about it, talking about how African Americans are more divided now than they were even before Obama got elected. And he hasn't done anything for the African American community. When he goes to Africa, he doesn't even go to the parts of Africa that he actually has roots in. But then he's more than happy to go over there and lecture everybody about how they can't have a car and air conditioning. Meanwhile, how he gets on Air Force One and flies around, and has helicopters flying around his hotel 24 hours a day, and maybe get them dog, and so their dog flies in on a private jetliner, and but the people in Africa can't have electricity or air conditioning. And so I think that Obama was a prince in 2008. I think for the general people, he was the trendy pick. He went on our news or our radio station, like 105.9 or 102.7, which is like the trendy music stations out here. He dances, he talks, and he goes on all the late night television shows, and he's with a lot of celebrities. And so I think for now, in this age where people are less politically involved and more TV and entertainment based, well, when your president and and the first lady are with all these celebrities, you tend to like them more because that's what they've always done. And so I feel like this is kind of what we've done. So it's up to people like us who have an opportunity to be younger and be able to be politically involved, but figure out a way to make politics more entertaining for people to be involved in. Because it's going to take a whole, like you said, I feel like an informed society is the best society. Us, us four of us can have all the information in the world. But if I go to my town hall meeting and they can't get past Obama being on Jay Leno, whatever I say is not going to matter. You know what I mean? Because this is what they do. So I feel like, getting big corporations out of it obviously is a big thing. But offering term limits is something in the immediate that we should be working on.
And are we timed out? I think we've gone over.
Go ahead.
I think we're fine.
Okay. talk however long you want. All right. So I've got about 10 more minutes left, and I've got to get going. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to add. Like I typed in that I had term limits on my list too. I think maybe a little longer to give some people time to figure out the procedure, but the idea was the same. Is that we don't want people entrenched in there making millions of dollars. And then one idea that I had, I don't know how feasible that is
I don't think it times out. You can just keep going.
Make congressional pay whatever the median national salary is. So if you're in Congress, you're actually living like the average American. So you know what it's like. Yeah, because right now I think like the average pay is like $174,000, while the median pay is like $51,000. I mean, to me, that's just so wrong. How can somebody who's supposedly representing the people make, on average, 3 times the amount of that average person? And granted, that's just the median, which means half the people are even less. So that was one idea that I had. I don't know if that would ever happen.
I just wanted to say that I was amused by what you said because I agree with it, but then I thought that who is going to implement it? The people who are going to implement a pay reduction are the congressmen who are getting the benefit or the reduction. So it's almost as ludicrous as the government's in some of the operations it has.
Hey, Johnny.
But go ahead.
Does the average person get 73% of their Obamacare paid for?
No. Don't think so.
What percentage is being paid for through Obamacare that is being advocated by the administration?
There's a lag, so he's responding right now.
Okay.
Oh,
Cool. Okay, so yeah, it looks like it's working.
well, the actually Congress is receiving a
join
73% subsidy to pay for Obamacare.
Well,
And that's
yeah,
something that the average, yeah,
Okay,
so the
cool.
average
It's
American
working,
person
good stuff.
does not get that
Yep, we're all good.
73%
Thank you.
subsidy. So I just wanted to let throw that out there that we talk about having everybody be on common ground.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's have everybody be on common ground.
Yeah,
Let's have, let's get rid of the subsidies. And that was put in place by Obama because people were complaining about having to pay for, having to pay for the high cost of the gold plan, which all members of Congress are have to have.
No, I mean, again, it goes back to what the Democrats wanted to stand up on the Senate floor all day and say that it's common sense. That common sense is, people in Congress are exempt from Obamacare. Obama is exempt from Obamacare. So, for me, if I had children, right, and I said, look, we all need to start eating healthy. I'm not going to tell my kids and my wife that they all need to eat healthy, but I'm exempt from eating healthy. It's like, these are just certain things. There's just certain laws of the land that just doesn't make any sense. But again, we're such an uninformed society on average. And yes, there's a lot of people that are, like ourselves are informed and are becoming even more informed. But see, I think that what needs to really happen is that we have to be able to not allow mainstream media to dictate who we are. I mean, I have people all over the place that will be like, you don't even know your skin color because you're black and you should love Obama. This is just what they do. And like the Democrats did by comparing Republicans to terrorists and, to all of this, mainstream media really, I mean, I don't know, Ken, if you saw Rachel Maddow's edited clips of the Vet March, and this is what, and so then they label, all these people as being these crazy anti or racist. And so what I really think happens is that yeah, I think so. What I really feel like is that we become so tied down with mainstream media. We're so tied down to what everybody wants to think. And I think that if we cannot get past that, then I think that we're in major trouble. And I feel like, even for the Vet March, I think one of the biggest problems is that they have donned liberty and the Constitution as only being somehow for white people. Like somehow that's only good. Like that's only what people should have. And meanwhile, Hispanics and African Americans and all the minority groups, they don't, you just need to get free things. And only people like veterans want liberty and want to have the American flag. That's why you see all over the country children having to be sent home from school because they wear a Duck Dynasty t-shirt or a Pro-America, and they have to take their gun t-shirts or their American flag t-shirts, where you can no longer have the Constitution on your t-shirt. However, if you want to have the Mexican Constitution on your t-shirt, knock yourself out. And again, liberal media like MSNBC or CNN can flip that and say, well, see, look, he said that he's anti-Hispanic because he doesn't like this. It has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with now it seems like people that believe in a pro-America are now somehow racist and bad. And that's what, to me, what the biggest issue is. We were founded by the gun. And again, our founding fathers weren't perfect, but they left the tyranny. They knew what tyranny was. They knew what it was like to lose everything, to become enslaved. And so that's why the Constitution, it's not like some amazing document. It's like they literally just wrote in the basic principles of human liberty and said, look, these are the laws of the land. People have the right to believe and to do whatever they want. They have the right to be secure in their persons. They have the right. And the Constitution is what gives us all of our authority. It's what gives us what we are. And when you have things like the Patriot Act that waives everybody's rights, but then they put Patriot Act on there, and it's like the biggest deceptive thing you could possibly have. It's a Patriot Act, but it means martial law. That means nobody has rights. It's like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. You have Obamacare, which means, oh no, everything's going to be free and everyone's getting free goodies because it's universal health care, but then premiums go up, or you can't keep your health care provider. There's just so many things that are anti-American now, to where now the people that are pro it, and then now you have this new thing where the IRS has said that even if we audit you in any way, shape, or form, we don't allow you to leave the country. Like, are you joking? Like, now you can't even take your money with you overseas if we decide that we don't want you to leave. I mean, it's just anything unconstitutional is what this government is for on average. Not everybody, but on average, anything like Dick Durbin. I mean, is there anybody more desperate to be a part of the establishment than Dick Durbin? I mean, Jesus. And Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein, Harry Reid, which are the top 4 constituents, along with Nancy Pelosi, who get up there and talk about how they want to ban everyone's guns. They want to tell you who the real media is. You have Obama that went to Ohio State and said, don't listen to those crazy conspiracy theorists who tell you that tyranny is lurking behind every corner. Meanwhile, NSA spy on people, IRS is telling the Tea Party what they're allowed to pray, and you have a stand down in Benghazi, and I mean, it's just like it's you're living in a science fiction movie. And it was funny because just to sum up my point, the other day somebody had asked on a radio show. They said, "Isn't this like 1984? Like a Brave New World?" And the funny thing is, they said no. At least in a Brave New World, there was a place that they could go to escape from the tyranny. There was the place in New Mexico that they were able to get outside of the tyranny. Here, it's just everywhere. It's universal tyranny. And so now we've really gotten to this point to where we have to get aggressive, not care what people think about it, not care about all those things. And I think that's the only way that we're really going to be able to start moving forward.
I've actually got to go. So, great points. So I don't have anything to add. I think none of you made my point. And the last thing I will say is, yeah, you're right. And it's not just one party that's guilty of it. It's both parties, which is part of the problem. Both every time there's a party that's out of power, they say the right things. We just want to restore power back to the people, but then they're so entrenched in the system that then once they get there, they become, or they already were a part of the system, which is why I think we get money out, we get gerrymandering out, we add term limits, we hold mainstream media accountable. And I don't know if you saw, that was actually one of the things I said, is we need to hold the news networks accountable for lying somehow. I don't know exactly, it'll take too long to figure that out, but if we do those things, that's a start. And and I think sadly, but at the same thing, I do think we are in a unique place with how easy it is to access people. I mean, like 20 years ago, we couldn't do this. And I think we are in an exciting time where, like, the people can rise up and say, we want to change and we're not going to accept it. It has happened, and unfortunately things have to get really bad before that change comes. And I think maybe we are heading in that direction. Things may have to get really bad before we finally say, no, enough is enough. But like Denham, you said, I think, we've got to do this. It's so easy to just say, it's so ridiculous, I don't want to have any part of it. But we can't do that. If smart and informed people and willing to have debate, willing to talk to other sides, because I think we don't all agree on everything, nor should we. I think it's good that we're willing to have these conversations, and we need to do that. So, Ken and I disagree on a lot, but I think the fact that we're in this conversation, there was no name calling. I think that's a good thing, and we need to do more of that. We need to try, and it may never get to how the ideal. I'm not naive enough to believe there'll ever be everyone's happy, loving everybody, and then no conflict. That's not going to happen. But we at least have to try. We at least have to inform people and do whatever we can.
That's for sure. That's for sure. No, but I mean, I definitely agree. And like I said, send me an email since you're in California, and with your information. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like really at the end of the day, I think it's all gonna come down to, you know, I don't romanticize a perfect government, but I do romanticize a small government, and I think that at the end of the day is, you know, there's a lot of things that I want to be doing outside of, you know, outside of having to talk about politics all day, but I realize that this is the most important thing to talk about our future, and there is no future if we don't really get behind this. And you know, I can kind of close and let you go. Like with this, is that if we let them get away with Benghazi, and let them get away with Fast and Furious, and we let them get away with all of these major issues where it's like literally there's a stand down, you're dead, and nobody talks about it, and these are the kind of things that governments are not getting away with, and that is because society is so entrenched with entertainment and being trendy that nothing else matters. And I think that it's going to take the grassroots movement to figure out a way to make it somehow trendy to be involved in politics, and outside of just making it seem like it's just for the old guy to go ahead and or the old woman to take care of, you know. And I think that's what we really need to start doing. And I'm trying to do that here in California with going to colleges and speaking to really get them. And I don't care. You can be the biggest Democrat you want to. That doesn't bother me, because at the end of the day, when I discuss facts, it's not my opinion. I'm discussing facts. And so when you get people that are involved and feel like they actually mean something, and I use the most simple thing for my friends the other day. There was a thing on Instagram a couple months ago where Instagram came out and said that they were going to use people's pictures on Instagram for marketing. And everybody stood up and was like, wait a minute, you're going to use our pictures for marketing and we're not going to get paid for it? And they're like, yeah, you know, this is what we could do because we're Instagram. So everyone said, well, we're just going to delete our Instagram account. We're not going to be bothered with it anymore. We're done. And so when Instagram saw that it was trending and that everybody was like, they were actually going to leave and people already deleted their Instagram, Instagram came out and said, okay, we won't do that. And that was just a small little thing that was able to stop something. So if we could get all of these people to kind of band together and say, look, we want answers on Benghazi, we want answers on NSA, we want answers on the IRS. You know, we don't care if you're on Jay Leno anymore. We want to know what's really going on. But people have to be informed and have to be well-read and well-educated on policies, understand, so that when they are going to these, you know, different places, that they know what they're talking about and they're not run over like a lot of politicians often get, because they're so naive that they couldn't even hold themselves in a debate with anybody because they're not informed enough.
All right. Great ending point. I've got to go, Ken. Sorry.
All right,
Take
have
care.
a good one. Oh, look. Oh, now I can see you out. Okay, now I can't see you out. He's gone.